Joe Hopkins here, and I'm asking an interesting question. Who's going to be the next person to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 3 times? I was kind of wondering this myself because I think there's at least one person, well, two people that should already be in there 3 times. Right now, the only triple inductee is Eric Clapton. And I do agree with that, right? He's in there for the Yardbirds. He's in there for Cream, and he's in there for his solo stuff. And I think Eric Clapton is one of those rare people who just participated in so many great bands. He played in so many really great bands that he could be in there again for either Blind Faith or Derek and the Dominoes. I think either of those are possible, although Derek and the Dominoes, I think, is the more likely bet. I think that could eventually happen. He could be in there 4 times. Potentially 5, who knows? But right now he's the only triple inductee, and there's a list people have online, and I have some of my own thoughts about who could be in there a 3rd time. Now, there are quite a few people who are in there twice, who aren't as well known, who could be in there a 3rd time because they played in numerous bands. They were a drummer in numerous bands. They were guitarist in numerous bands. I don't know everybody's names. We're going over some of the big names, and I'll give you 2 of my personal thoughts. One of whom I think got boned, right? But the first one that is, I got a list on the computer here of the common ones. The first one is Paul McCartney, and I agree with that. I think he should be in there 3 times right now. He's in there with the Beatles, obviously. All the Beatles are in there twice for the Beatles and their solo work. But Paul McCartney was in Wings. That was his other band. He's in there for his solo stuff, but Wings should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Paul McCartney should have been the next triple inductee, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions. It's, they're one of the biggest, Wings was one of the biggest acts of the 1970s. I think they should have been inducted before Paul McCartney's solo work was. To be honest with you, Paul McCartney's best work, second from the Beatles, was with Wings. He should be in there for that. That's that's my thought. That's a lot of people's thoughts. The next one is Dave Grohl, who I believe will likely be in there a 3rd time, right? He's in there for Nirvana. He's in there for Foo Fighters, but he was also in Queens of the Stone Age. And I believe at some point they're going to get inducted. And Dave Grohl likely will be included. He was their drummer for a minute, a little bit more than a minute. Dave Grohl is another one of those guys, like I said, those musicians that play in every band. Right before he started the Foo Fighters, he was invited to join the Heartbreakers. Tom Petty wanted him in the Heartbreakers because they needed a drummer at the moment. If he'd have done that, he'd be in there twice. But as it is, he's in there for Nirvana and the Foo Fighters. I think Queens of the Stone Age is probably the project he was involved in that's most likely to be inducted. So, a lot of people bring up Them Crooked Vultures, which is also a possibility, but I think is less likely than Queens of the Stone Age. And he's been in like half a dozen other bands officially, and I don't know how many bands he's played with unofficially. The dude doesn't say no to much, honestly, which can be a good thing. That gets you in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame numerous times. Or you could end up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a bunch of times because you played in everybody's bands. Another one that comes up, another name that comes up for a triple inductee is Jimmy Page, but I don't think so, to be honest with you. He's in there for the Yardbirds. He's in there for Led Zeppelin, obviously. That's obvious. People bring up his solo stuff or his work with The Firm. The Firm had 1 hit. They weren't terribly well known, and Jimmy Page's solo stuff, it's not like Robert Plant's solo stuff, where Robert Plant had a solid solo career after Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page did not. I don't think that he's going to be a triple inductee for that reason. He was in 2 of the biggest rock bands of all time and then didn't do anything after that, right? he wouldn't be the only one that kind of dropped off. You know, John Paul Jones didn't really do much after that either until Them Crooked Vultures, which I mentioned with Dave Grohl as their drummer. If that band was inducted, John Paul Jones would be in there twice, I guess. But as far as Jimmy Page, no, I don't see the firm getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or Jimmy Page as a solo artist. Honestly, it could happen, but I don't see it. One that I think really did get boned on it was Neil Young. He's in there twice, for Buffalo Springfield and for his solo work. But Crosby, Stills, and Nash were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame without Neil Young. I think they should have inducted Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Because a lot of their bigger hits happened with Neil Young with them, right? I agree that they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as Crosby, Stills, and Nash, but I think they should have added Neil Young as well. And then there's Neil Young's other band, Crazy Horse. I think could get inducted as well. Neil Young is another one that could end up in there 4 times. I think he should already be in there 3 times. I doubt they're going to re-induct Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. You know, I could be wrong. They might. It's almost like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame people just don't want anybody other than Eric Clapton to be the 3rd one in there. But just my thought. Now, there's another name that came up on the list that I looked up online that I think is a possibility, but I doubt it. Right, and that's Ronnie Wood. And the reason why I doubt it, he's in there for the Rolling Stones, obviously, and the Faces, obviously. Some people say he could be in there if they induct the Jeff Beck group, but I don't think the Jeff Beck group is going to be inducted. Jeff Beck's in there twice for the Yardbirds and for his solo stuff, and I'm pretty sure that the Jeff Beck group is included in his solo work. I could be wrong, but I mean, if the Jeff Beck group did get inducted, like some people seem to think, that would put Ronnie Wood and Jeff Beck in there 3 times, and that'd be cool. I could see that. Now, that's the list that generally comes up when you look at it online, but I do have a couple other names that I think are possibilities. Now, like I said, I believe there are probably quite a few musicians that I haven't thought of who've been in numerous bands that could end up in there 3 times without being a major name. But these 2 are big names, and I think they likely, you know, they could be in there 3 times. One of them. The other one won't now because, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But the first one I want to mention is Chris Cornell. He's in there for Soundgarden. He will be in there eventually for Audioslave. And I believe Audioslave will get inducted at some point. They probably should have been already. But whenever have they been around long enough? Okay, I think you have to be around 25 years. So it might be another minute or so. Either way, Audioslave will eventually get in there. When they do, the band members will be in there twice for Rage Against the Machine and Audioslave, because it was the same band, different singer. I believe Chris Cornell will be inducted a 2nd time for that. And I believe he could very well be inducted a 3rd time for either his solo work, because he put out numerous really good solo albums. He toured a lot as a solo artist. He had a few hits, not like #1 hits, but they were there. But I think he could also be inducted for Temple of the Dog. I know they only did 1 album, but it was a great album. And they wouldn't be the only band who got inducted only having done 1 album. If they did induct him with Temple of the Dog, that would also put Matt Cameron on there 3 times. I believe he's another one that could be a triple inductee simply from having been in a bunch of bands. He was inducted for Soundgarden and for Pearl Jam, and I believe he played on some other projects as well, including, I think he plays drums for Third Secret. I could be wrong. Not that they're a big band. I don't see them getting in the Hall of Fame, but he could get in there for Temple of the Dog. So if Temple of the Dog were inducted, and I think they could be, that could give both Matt Cameron and Chris Cornell an option to be in there 3 times. Another one, and this is the one I said won't be in there 3 times, but maybe should be, is Ronnie James Dio. He was not inducted with Black Sabbath. They didn't include him, and I kind of get why, but I kind of don't as well. Black Sabbath had a number of singers that maybe shouldn't be included necessarily, although with other bands they did include lesser, later singers. With Sabbath, though, they really had 2 periods of time that everybody thinks of with them, and that's with Ozzy Osbourne and with Ronnie James Dio. They had hits with Dio. They were still a big name band. Dio was the replacement singer, and they did really good work with him. And it's not like it's unknown. I think they should have included Ronnie James Dio when they inducted Black Sabbath. Had they done that, I think Dio could have ended up a 3-time inductee because of Rainbow and his band Dio, because he was in Rainbow with Ritchie Blackmore, and in the 70s, and that was some really good work, man. Those were excellent albums. They were well known. Anybody that's in the hard rock, heavy metal, like all the 70s stuff, knows Rainbow. I wouldn't say they had huge hits, but they had songs that charted on the metal charts and the hard rock charts. And it wouldn't be like, it's not like they're unknown. I think Rainbow could get inducted. I think Dio, being as big a deal as he's been in the heavy metal world and hard rock, could be inducted with the band Dio. The thing that will stop him from being inducted 3 times would be the fact that they didn't include him with Black Sabbath, which I do think that was quite an oversight, in my opinion, especially since he couldn't even do his Sabbath stuff live. Obviously, he was in Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi owned the rights to the songs. I saw Dio live. He did his stuff. He did the stuff from Rainbow. He couldn't play the Sabbath stuff because he doesn't own it. And the fact that he doesn't own the songs he was on tells you that he was very much in Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi doesn't get to own the songs you were on if you weren't in Black Sabbath. So it's just my thinking. He belonged there. He should have the ability to be a triple inductee, and that keeps him from that. But I'd love to hear what you guys think, right? Who do you think should be a triple inductee? Do you agree with my 2 extra picks there? All the others were the ones I got offline. But, I mean, do you agree with me? Chris Cornell, Ronnie James Dio. I mean, come on. Dio was in 3 of the best bands in heavy metal, right? Chris Cornell was in 3 of the best rock bands of the 90s and 2000s, plus his solo stuff. And do you agree with me that, Neil Young shouldn't have been left out? Should Paul McCartney have already been a triple inductee? Him and Neil Young, I think they already should be there. They should be, in my opinion. And that's my thoughts on that, right? So tell me what you think. Leave a comment. And check out some of my music. Tell me if I should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Links to streaming down below and playlists at the end of the video here. Yeah. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I love y'all. Peace out, baby. Bye-bye.